everyone, it is past 4 o'clock in the afternoon here and the light is starting to go a little bit, so I hope it's not too dark, so it should be still okay to film this video. Today is the last day of my floral challenge, one a day, which I began on Sunday. And it's been super fun. I really enjoyed it. I thought the reason I started it was because I thought I'll give myself a task to do every day: paint a flower, no matter what flower, where I find it, whether it would be from a picture, from the garden, from a magazine, whichever, from my mind. Whichever it would be okay, as long as it's watercolor and flower related. So that was a great exercise to force myself to experiment and perhaps improve my skills at drawing flowers and also watercolor. So here we go. So this was day one, and it's basically started with an imaginative floral composition, which I just kind of thought in my head of, but I have a cosmetic bag that I tend to take with me when I travel, where I keep my essential makeup things, and it's a Ted Baker, I think. Is it Ted Baker? I might be completely wrong. No, it is actually Ted Baker, and I'm not going to show it to you because it's actually quite dirty from makeup, but it has a little pattern there which is nothing like this, but I quite like that flower that it had on there, and the rest I just kind of added, and the leaves as well. So that is how this illustration came to life. Now the next day, day two, I wasn't too happy with the flower, the entire flower, because this is the problem that I had with the cadmium, something yellow. Was it cadmium? Let me just double check. It's the yellow that I took out of my palette. Actually, one second. So this yellow here is a mixture of yellow ochre and cadmium yellow medium. Yeah, so that's the two yellows that I really didn't get on with from my St. Petersburg White Nights pocket palette, and I had to toss them. So I really dislike this area. If I close it like that, I quite like the pink with the green, and I like this area and the butterfly, but yeah, so that's that. Let's move on to day three. So day three, this inspiration, oh yes, so quickly to say, this is a type of a weed that if it starts growing on a grass lawn, it basically spreads and spreads, and there is no grass left amongst those weeds. So it sort of looks pretty because it makes it a fluffy kind of soft lawn, but it won't be grass anymore, and it's very hard, as I learned, to get rid of it because this thing has roots, and even if you dig it out, apparently it still comes back, so be aware. Anyway, so one day I was sunbathing in the garden, and I looked at this weed patch, and there was a flower, a butterfly hovering over these flowers, and it just sat down, and it was this coloring, and I thought it looked so pretty with the green that I wanted to capture it. So this is how it came to life. So I actually picked one of those flowers and I drew it from life with the imagination of the butterfly sitting on top. So day three, this came about by looking, I think, at Country Living magazine, an older one, and there was photograph somewhere of decor, and this little glass was filled with different types of roses, and I changed the composition and I changed the color of the glass, I changed the color of the rose, pretty much everything except for this part here was true to the original photograph. And yeah, that's it. Oh, quickly to say, so this was St. Petersburg White Nights, this was St. Petersburg White Nights, and this is Daniel Smith. As probably many of you could recognize the beloved Shadow Violet, which separates into this gorgeousness. Literally, you don't need to do anything other than just adding drops of water to it and let it flow and create this beautiful abstract texture. So that's that. Next one is day 4, Wednesday, and this came about by looking at a vase in my room with filled with faux flowers, which not everyone seems to be fond of, but I think it's such a great way to have to add decor to your room, to add character without having constantly to worry about fresh flowers going off and all that. So this is also St. Petersburg White Night. I didn't add any ink pen here because I quite like the result of the flowers. I liked how the watercolor pulled at the edges, and I thought if I add black ink pen, then that may distract from this gorgeousness, and so I left it like that. Let's move on to day 5. This happened by me wanting to paint a pansy. I didn't care what color, I just knew I wanted to paint a pansy. So I went online and I went on Pinterest and looked up as many different pansy pictures as I could, and I found a picture of a chocolate sponge cake with some sort of lilac or light purple cream, and a beautiful fresh pansy, violet pansy, sitting on top of this cream. And I thought that is such an original way of presenting a flower, and it looked delicious. It actually looks so good. I think if if I'd have a tea party, I'd probably try to find the recipe and recreate this beauty. So that was also my take on food illustration as well, because that is something I want to learn to do in the foreseeable future. And yeah, so I have a separate video about how to mix browns, as I do not like have brown watercolor pans in my palettes. I tend to take them out, but yeah, sometimes there is this rare occasion where you really have to have brown. So that was day 5. And day 6, so that was yesterday. Have I mentioned that this was St. Petersburg? And this color, actually, if you're interested, this is Blue Lake. I didn't add or didn't mix anything. This is straight from the pan, and look how gorgeous it looks. This is the color that I substituted the ultramarine with. So my ultramarine is gone, and I have added this beautiful Blue Lake. It's a mix, or it's in between ultramarine and violet. Gorgeous color, love it. So let's move on to day 6. These are these gorgeous orchids which I have made a video of, and I believe I uploaded it well, the day before you are going to see this video. So yeah, and I have used St. Petersburg White Nights again, so you can see I'm predominantly using this watercolor because it's just so easy. It's super gorgeous. It's I made a video about cheap watercolors versus expensive, and this is the only exception where cheap, you know, doesn't translate into quality. It just is amazing. I highly recommend for you, especially if you're a beginner, just go buy the biggest palette you can, because it will be still so much more cheaper than any of the other artist grade watercolors. It is artist grade, it is cheap, and it is gorgeous. It really is. You know, you can easily compete with Schmincke and Daniel Smith. I would go as far as saying that. So let's go back to talk about the illustration. So this is an orchid. My mom has the biggest orchid collection I have ever seen. Literally, orchids are everywhere in the house, and this is a gorgeous, gorgeous orchid. It's like I call it a leopard orchid. I don't think it's a botanical name in any way, but just the spots remind me of a leopard, and it's gorgeous. It really is. And yeah, so that's what I've done here. I have changed, so in the video you will learn that I have changed the structure of this orchid. So although I painted it from looking at the flower, but I have changed where the stalk went. I basically changed the composition and added this bud, which didn't exist, but I added it by studying how the other buds look on the other orchids, and really doesn't take much to figure out that you just have to paint it a dark color, because, well, actually probably not, because this is a white, so I would assume it was more white and with some purple, but I just kind of decided to add more of the purple. And then, as you can see, to correlate it to the rest of the illustration, I have added those spots right there, and it works really well like that. I quite like it. I would suggest, or actually urge you, to go and see the video, because I show you the original orchid in this, and it looks weird here. You might think, I've never seen an orchid with this green curled kind of edging to the petal, but the fact is that this orchid is the fully opened orchid. This is one that has been recently opened, and that is meant to be a bud, so it's 3 stages of the orchid. And in the video, from looking at the original orchid, you will see that actually this curled petal is green, pale green color, and like I said, nothing I've seen before, so I thought I should document it in the video to keep it as a memory. And yeah, so that was really interesting. There is in that video I talk about the process a bit more in detail, so go have a look if you want. And finally, today's piece, which I have shared with you on Instagram, but I didn't do a video about this, so you get to see it here. And so have I mentioned that this was St. Petersburg, and final is also St. Petersburg White Nights. So here we go, final day, day 7, started on Sunday, finished on Saturday. So this is hibiscus from the garden that I took pictures of from different angles and created. This is very true to the original composition as it was in nature. I have not added or changed anything, and yeah, I'm really happy. I tried something different here. I tried to keep it quite pastel and light colors, which I generally don't like doing. I like a a punch of vibrant colors in my illustration, but here I thought, let me try something different, and I really like it. I have not used any white ink. Is just all you can see, the white parts is the white of the paper, and if I go out a little bit, it almost looks like highlights that I added with white ink, but like I said, it's just the paper. So that is the last one, and yeah, I have learned a lot in this challenge and it was super fun. I would definitely do something like this again, maybe with food illustrations or something else. And yeah, the final thing to say is that I made sure I tried to experience drawing every a lot of different types of what I'm trying to say is that I have painted from life, I have painted from pictures that I took, I have painted from mind, from fantasy, I have painted from looking at images online. So you don't have to, or even fall flowers as you saw, so you don't have to narrow it to a bunch of fresh flowers that you have to have in front of you. If you don't and you feel like you really want to take the brush, some watercolors and just get going, then really you have no excuse. You can find so many different possibilities to look at flowers and paint from them. So thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video and see you soon.